All right. Good morning and good afternoon and good evening to everyone, wherever you are in the world right now. And welcome to the side sessions of the third UN South Asia Forum in Business and Human Rights. So this session will focus on solutions to address social conditions in the leather-based garment supply chain. And this will be hosted by the Center for Research and Multinational Corporations, or SOMO. And so this is just one of the side sessions leading up to the plenary forum happening from March 28th to the 30th in Dhaka, Bangladesh. And just a quick note, everyone, this session is being recorded and we are also live currently on YouTube right now. And we are so glad to have everyone right here. And we just have a few things that we want you to remember throughout the session. And number one, we would love to see you. So if you are speaking later in the session or if you're going to ask a question, please do turn on your cameras. And number two, you can post your questions or comments in the chat box, or you can also use the raise hand feature of Zoom right there at below your window. Okay, so for today's session, this will be moderated by Virginia Sanjojo. She's the Senior Coordinator of SOMO. And Virginia, the floor is now yours.
Thank you, Jessica. Thank you so much for hosting and facilitating us. Good day. Very welcome to our session. We're here on behalf of the Together for Decent Leather Consortium. I only have a few slides introducing us. So let me just show this. We're very happy to be here today because we're a consortium of South Asia as well as European organizations focusing on labor rights challenges in the leather sector, with the emphasis on Bangladesh, India, and Pakistan. And we're going to address those social conditions as well as discuss solutions to how to overcome these. I'm happy to have in our session today Mamadou Hassan Khan from Bangladesh Labour Foundation, who will be sharing with us his experience as a researcher in Bangladesh, focusing on different sectors, including the leather sector. We have Ms. Farhat Parveen from Now Communities in Pakistan, who will be sharing her experience with leather workers in the Karachi area. And we have Pradiphan Ravi from Cividep, India, who will be sharing his experience as a researcher, researching home workers and leather workers in Ambur, India. And we'll close with colleague Marcia Deus from SOMO, who will also be speaking from an international perspective and also be focusing on solutions, how to overcome labor rights challenges in the leather sector. So a little bit about our program. As said, we are working on improving working conditions and reducing labor rights abuses by promoting adherence to international labor standards and corporate accountability in leather-based garment, footwear, and accessories value chains. And with this project and our work, we hope to generate an increased commitment by companies and governments to fulfill their human rights due diligence obligations. I'll be moderating this session. We'll have our 4 speakers. Each will give a brief presentation. At the end of every individual's presentation, there'll be some time for questions from the audience. And if there are any questions left at the end, we can see whether we have time for that as well. Please write them in the chat so we can keep a track of the number of questions we'll need to address in our upcoming hour. Okay, so this is for my introduction, but let me go to our first speaker. Hassan from BLF, can I give you the floor to introduce yourself a bit more and take us through the state of play in Bangladesh? Is Hassan still, is his connection, is he connected? His internet is here. If not, Farhat.
I think we lost him.
I think we lost him, yeah.
Yes.
Farhat. I think he's just entering back into the meeting room. Hassan, I hope your connection's been restored. If you're ready, can you please take us through your presentation on the leather sector in Bangladesh? The floor is yours.
Sorry, Virginia, I am missing you due to internet connection.
Yeah. We just introduced you. If you're ready,
Yes.
Please share the presentation.
Okay. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to present about the workers' situation in Bangladesh and way forward. I am Mahmudul Hassan Khan, Deputy Director of Bangladesh Labour Foundation. Bangladesh Labour Foundation is a labor support civil society organization, and BLF works for the welfare of workers, working people, professionals, women, children, employees, and families. We share a common determination to organize to defend human rights and labor standards in Bangladesh and to promote the growth of trade union for the benefits of all working men and women and in their families. Today I am here on behalf of Bangladesh Labour Foundation to present the workers' challenges and way forwards in the tannery industry of Bangladesh. Where is my screen? Do you see my presentation, the screen?
Yes, we're all good. Thank you, Hassan.
Okay. I have some content in my presentation. First, I would like to discuss about the tannery industry of Bangladesh, and then at a glance, basic tannery industrial state in Dhaka, and then I will discuss about the current acute problem of the workers' perspective, and then salient problem of the environmental perspectives, and then some government initiative that has been taken, also discussed, and notable policies and laws of the workers and leather industry of Bangladesh I will discuss, and then recommendation and forward in my presentation. I'm welcoming everyone to my presentation. Bangladesh government has declared tannery as one of the most priority sector in the country. And Bangladesh government awarded this leather sector as product of the year in 2017. Leather sector is holding the second position for foreign earning of the country among the 15 earning sector in our country. It is the second position in our country. And more than 3% of the country's export earning are coming from these leather and leather-based sectors. In fiscal year 2021 and 22, Bangladesh export 941.6 million US dollar, and present leather and leather products are exported around the 53 countries of the world. And main country is Italy, Brazil, Germany, Poland, Bulgaria, Singapore, China, and USA. Bangladesh government has fixed export target US dollar 12 billion by 2030. That is the target of Bangladesh government to export the leather and leather goods. We know Bangladesh tannery, maximum tannery factories are were in near the Dhaka city, capital city in Hazaribagh, and 2017 it was shifted to the near city Dhaka in Shabar Tannery Industrial Estate. That is actually called Bisik Tannery Industrial Estate. And during the relocation in these tanneries in the Hazaribagh, there are 2,202 plots in this estate, and out of 202 plots, 155 plots allocated for the tanneries factories. And now out of 155, 134 tannery are running in this estate. Out of 134 running tannery, 23 factories are unionized, and 111 factories are still ununionized. And there are 62,000 people are working here, and most of the workers are male. Only 6 to 7% workers are female in the tannery sector in Bangladesh. There are two owners association are working in this state. One is Bangladesh Tanners Association, and another is Bangladesh Finnish Leather Goods Footwear Exporters Association. 100 factories are affiliated with BTA, and 55 tanneries are affiliated with BFLL. To overview the current problem of the workers, I would like to share briefly in the history of tannery industry in Bangladesh. In 1950, leather industry began with 21 tanneries in Hazaribagh, Dhaka. But to protect the Buriganga River, who is near the bank of the capital city of Dhaka, to provide the infrastructure support facilities to the tannery entrepreneurs by establishing an environmental and sustainable tannery and a compliant tannery. This tannery has been shifted in 2017. And it was expected that by the relocation of these tanneries, all factories will fulfill their social compliance. They will maintain their occupational health and safety issues, and they will ensure the workers' welfare of these industries. But after the relocation, the problem we are facing that lack of decent working condition in the factories in respect to occupational health and safety, chemical safety, and also the sanitation system. Most of the factories, their workers are working here without any protection equipment, and very unhealthy condition they are working in the factory. And chemical safety issue is very alarming issue. We know there are some steps in chemical uses, from the chemical buying to chemical use, chemical transportation, chemical handle, every steps we found that there is no proper protective equipment are used, and protective equipment are provided by the factory owners. It is also found that some workers are also very reluctant to use the protective equipments during the using of safety chemical use. Most of the cases, the right to freedom of association, collective bargaining, and consultations are absent. We already found that among the 135 tanneries, only 23 tanneries are unionized, and 111 tanneries are ununionized. That is the main factor that the rights to freedom of association, collective bargaining are absent. That is why most of the owners think that if their worker became organized and their factory became a member of a unionized factory, they have to pay more benefit to the workers. They have to pay like maternity leave, weekly holiday, 8 working hours, and another facilities as per labor law. So they have no interest to make their industry, make their factories unionized. And also another thing is the workers union, the tannery workers union is one of the big workers union in this sector, but their leadership became very old, young leaders yet not coming. So their voice for the workers are not up to the mark. So the collective bargaining and consultation are most of the cases absent. It was expected that after the relocation, medical facilities, accommodation, school, canteens, transportation, all facilities will be included in these industries. But it is a matter of sorrow that all these facilities are not available in this industry. Basically, medical accommodation, school, there is no transportation system. And most of the workers lived in Hazaribagh, and tannery industrial estate is 24 kilometers far away from Hazaribagh. As in this area, there is no medical and accommodation and school. They do not have the access to live here. And another reason is this estate is in rural area, and there is no house established in this area. It is a crops land, and beside the Dholeshwari river. So it is actually crops land, and there is no living houses in these areas. So the rent, house rent is so high, and they are unable to rent in this area. So they are coming from the Hazaribagh, 24 kilometers away from this state. For this reason, they have to pay 150 taka, more than 1.75 US dollar they have to bear for their transportation cost. This is the one issues for the workers they have to pay. And another thing is that there is no canteen inside the factories, inside the industrial estate, and they have to rise awake in the morning. They have to spend 2 to 3 hours for coming in the factories. So they cannot carry their food because of hot and humidity weather, and it became not up to the mark for it. This is the one of the main problem of the workers. And some of the cases when accident occurred, most of the time they have to go to Dhaka Medical College Hospital, which is also far away from 30 kilometers from this state. And traffic is also alarming issue to reach the hospital. In some cases, sometimes the critical condition has happened in the for the injured patient during this accident. High existence of temporary and contractual workers and no benefit of or allowances. Now, more than 60% factories are working with the temporary and contractual workers. It is the alarming issue for the workers because owners want to work their work with the temporary workers because temporary workers have no limit work time. They do not have to pay any facilities, extra facilities. Even they do not have weekly holiday. They have to work 12 hours, average 12 hours per day. That is why they are hiring contractors and they deployed the temporary workers in this sector. And for this reason, skilled workers are losing their jobs because maximum skilled workers, they are in under the workers union and they are getting the more benefit. So the workers, so the owners, they think that if they work with the contractual worker, they have to pay less amount than the skilled worker. And actually, the owners are maintaining their works for the profit. Actually, they are not working for the industrial growth. Implementation of minimum wage is ignored in this sector. Government already declared in 2018 minimum wages for this sector for urban area 13,500 taka and for the rural area 12,100 taka, but this is not implemented in this factory. Lack of leave and overtime policy in the factories. There is no policies, overtime policies, leave policies, and other policies in the factory level. And absence of these policies, worker does not raise their voice because they have no document, they have no proper document to raise their voice that they have the leave policy, they have the overtime policy like this. No maternity leave, another inhumanity situation of this sector. No workers have enjoyed their maternity leave. Very rare cases, nowadays, very rare cases, some women are taking their maternity leave. That is the result of the bargaining capacity of the trade unions. But the workers who are not under the trade union, they are not getting this benefit. And most of the workers work without formal employment agreement. Without formal, they have no appointment letter, they have no ID card, they have no job card also, and they leave for the provision of leave of absence. No work, no payment. This basis they work. For implementation of labor law, we have labor law for this sector as well as the industry, labor law 2006. But we saw that the implementation of labor law is very poor. And another thing is lack of corporate social responsibilities initiative by the owners. Owners are doing their business. Actually, owners are doing to earn profit, but they are not doing the activities from the perspectives of social responsibilities. Workers are the part of the business, but totally this is their mindset that workers
Thank you, Hassan, for your presentation. Unfortunately, he was not quite ready. but I think he may have lost his internet connection again. We can wait a second to see whether he comes back. Otherwise, I would like to propose I give the floor first to Ms. Farhat Parveen, the founder and director of Now Communities in Pakistan, to share with us her experience with working with leather workers in the Greater Karachi area, and for her to share what are the challenges for these workers in trying to make ends meet, especially given the COVID pandemic, which has significantly impacted the workers and vulnerable and those being vulnerable in Pakistan. Farhat, if you can unmute, then the floor is yours.
I have unmuted myself. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can, Farhat.
So, good morning. If it is morning or good afternoon, where it is afternoon. My name is Farhat Parveen, as Virginia has just mentioned. We are working in Karachi mainly, but we have the Now Communities is working in other parts of Pakistan as well. But for the study, we were focused in Karachi. But if you talk about the leather and tannery sector in Pakistan, it is it is working in Punjab and largely in Punjab and in the province of Sindh. Pakistan has 4 provinces, and we can find leather garment sector in the 2 major provinces of Pakistan. And we have focused our efforts in the province of Sindh, and even in the Sindh. Sindh is a large, province, and it has a very big industrial area located in the Karachi, which is the largest city in Pakistan, and perhaps one of the largest cities, largest industrial cities in Pakistan. So, and if you talk about the garment sector, the composite garment sector, textile sector is responsible for the 70% of the total exports that Pakistan makes. And leather garments and tanneries especially is one of the very, very neglected sectors as far as the health and safety conditions are concerned. The wages and the other working conditions are quite precarious. So we have conducted our field research in Karachi. We have spoke to 179 workers, and there were women in the factories, but we could not talk to them because of various reasons. And it is also an important point to mention here that most of the women, are finding it difficult to get employed in the leather garment sector. And tanneries never had women, in the supply chain, except for the home-based work where they clean the hides. So in some areas, this work is being done at the home-based level. So we found women there, but there weren't many women. Hello, can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, Farhat, we can.
Yeah.
You're all clear.
Okay. So, yeah. So, and there were many women working in the leather textile sector, but their number is being diminished quite steadily in the past 1 decade, I would say. So we did not find women in the tanneries and in the leather garment sector. I mean, they are not in our sample, I would say. I mean, if you look at the working conditions, more than 95% workers did not have contracts, formal contracts, in our survey, and the wages are, you know, quite low. Um there was no social security whatsoever. Only 15 percent of the workers which we have interviewed had some social security measures available, and all of them were unionized. There was only one factory, tannery actually, where we found a union, and when we were comparing the conditions of work in the organized sector and unionized sector and the places in the working conditions, the unionized factory are far better than the factories who do not have a union. And when our friend from
Sorry, Farhat,
hello,
hi, your connection just broke up.
yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes, now it's good again. Thank you.
Okay, we have also looked into the issues of caste in our field survey, and we have found that there are problems. I mean, in regards to caste in the leather garment sector. 95% of our sample was workers in our sample are Muslims, and 5% were Hindus. And they had issues. I mean, caste is not only prevails in among Hindus, but it also persists in the Muslims as well. So that was one thing which we have found, and we have found that they are facing many issues, which I will explain in the later. The age group was quite young. 49% of our respondents were between the age of 18 to 20, and 21 and 18% among the workers were among the age of 21 to 30. So the sample was in our study was quite young. Then education level is 50% of the workers were illiterate, and 16% attained the matriculation level of education. Then most of them were married. 73% of our sample was married, and their family size was quite large. 41% of the sample had 8 to 11 members in their family. So you can understand that the family size is quite large. And in most cases, only 1 to 3% 84% workers had more than one person who's earning and contributing in the family income. So their wages are very, very important, for their survival. So, I mean, if you look at the working conditions, we have found that, as I told you earlier, that most of the workers do not have the employment contracts. Health and safety conditions are very bad, especially in the tanneries, and conditions are not very good in the leather sector as well. And we have found many workers who in the communities that when we were uh, trying to enlist the workers with whom we want to talk about the working conditions in the leather garment sector. We have found that there is an increase in the home-based work in the leather garment sector as well, and even in the export-oriented leather garment sector. Uh, we have found that workers are making accessories at the home-based level, but employers are not, admitting that they are, doing work. Getting their work done at the home-based level. So this is one, issue that we have, come across in the leather garment sector, where we have conducted our study. As I told you, okay. So most of the workers are working on the salary basis, and the salaries, and most of the workers are not getting the minimum wage in Pakistan, and even in our survey, leather garments is supposed to be relatively better paid work, but in our study we did not find many workers who are getting the minimum wage set by the government. Minimum wage in the province of Sindh is quite problematic at the moment, because the government of Sindh has announced a higher wage, set a higher wage, minimum wage, uh, 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 than other provinces. In the last financial year, the Chief Minister of Sindh announced that the minimum wage would be set at 25,000, but the employers in Sindh went to the Sindh High Court that they would not be able to pay the minimum wages, although government has supported them, during Corona crisis. They have been, given, the employers have been given loans, and government has facilitated them. But as far as their behavior towards workers is concerned, workers did not get it. So as our case went to the Sindh High Court in favor of the of the workers. Now communities was one of the
Your connection's not always good.
on to file review in the Supreme Court, and eventually employers have gotten the decision in favor of their petition. So at the moment, legally, workers are supposed to get 17,500 as their minimum wage. And in our survey, we have found that 64% of the workers are getting 16,500 20,000 as their monthly salary at the month. Although government is trying to documents in cash, so they are. I mean, still workers are getting not getting their salaries in. In their bank accounts. 78% of the workers do not have any social security. Only 3% of the workers have been registered in some, in EOBI, which is one of the scheme, and 4% in the Sindh Employee Social Security institution, and 15% workers in total are getting any kind of social security at their workplace. Then most of the workers have prior experience in the leather garment sector. Like 59% of the workers are working in the leather garment sector. It means that most of them are experienced, and their minimum wages should have been much more than what they are getting at the moment. And when we spoke to them that what should be their salary, most of the workers said that their salary should be 35 to 40,000 rupees, so that they could meet the both and their household income is not very high as well. Most of the workers their family income is less than 50,000 rupees, Pakistani rupees. So their household budget, as you perhaps know, that there is a lot of price hike in inflation is very high. According to government own figures, it is higher than 30%. In the past 3 years. So, but workers are not being, getting, compensated. So the general working conditions are, as I told you earlier, that workers do not have employment contracts. They do not have any kind of social security. Occupational health and safety is a very, but still workers are, and they don't get, overtime. And what I mean by that is that the rate of per hour work is the same when they work for overtime. And as my Bangladeshi, friend was talking about the working conditions, they are very much the same, in Pakistan as well. So when you are paid so low in Pakistan, workers sometimes need to get a loan to do their expenses. But in very a few places we have found that they could apply for a loan in their workplaces. So
thank you.
Yeah, and if we talk about the leaves, 21. Yeah.
Thank
Okay.
you for the presentation. I was just wondering whether you can also mention solutions how to overcome these challenges, or recommendations for governments or brands and companies producing in or sourcing from Pakistan. If you can take a few minutes to end with that, then we would go to Pradeepan next.
Yeah, there are efforts to form national or provincial level unionized unions in Pakistan, or federations in Pakistan, so that the rights of workers could be secured. And there are some efforts made by the international partners like Accord and Industrial and Clean Cloth Campaign, and so all of that is going on. But what we need to do perhaps is to focus our efforts on some basic fundamental rights. For example, we need to focus on the increase in the unionization in Pakistan, and for that we need to make some fundamental changes in the prevailing legal framework of unionization. We have witnessed that working conditions are better where workers are organized, so it means that we need to increase the level of unionization in Pakistan. And I believe that our international partners, which I have just mentioned, need to talk to the government of Pakistan that if the government wants to benefit from the GSP plus, for example, and if they want orders from Europe and America and other parts of the world, they need to respect the human rights of workers. So I think the right of association and freedom of association is a long-term solution for workers. Then we need to focus on the occupational and health and safety standards in Pakistan, and Accord is working on this particular issue quite well, and we have meetings with them even in our meeting we have requested them to talk to the government of Pakistan bilaterally and try to exert as much leverage which they have because of their particular condition that the government of Pakistan need to improve the occupational health and safety conditions at the workplace, and for that we need to revamp our archaic bureaucratic systems. So and this would also go a long way if that happens in Pakistan. It would be one of these sustainable measures which we would be taking. And then government of Pakistan, we need to organize the civil society, need to form local consortiums to secure workers' rights. All the labor support organizations and labor unions need to form local consortiums to secure workers' rights. And instead of focusing on everything, we need to prioritize our efforts to secure some fundamental rights, and then maybe we can talk about other rights. So in my solution, what I think is that we need to focus on right of association, of better occupational health and safety conditions, and increase in the minimum wages, and a revamp of the local labor departments, and better focused and organized response from the civil society, which includes the trade unions and local support organizations, labor support organizations.
Thank you, Farhad, for also taking us along the solutions and recommendations how to overcome these labor rights challenges. I would like to ask the audience whether they have questions for Farhad. I see one coming in now, which is on what's the involvement of child labor in the sector? Farhad, have you come across this in your research?
Yeah, unfortunately, we have found child labor in our survey, in the factories and at the home-based level as well. We have not included, some of the, responses. But we have found child labor in the leather garment sector, and and their conditions are worse than other workers, because their wages are lower than the adult workers. Their working conditions are bad, because of the legislation. There is a law which prohibits the child labor in Pakistan. So what employers are doing at the moment, they are hiring child labor in the second shift, so that if there is an inspection, I mean, in 78% factories which we have covered, there was no inspection. Even then, employers are catering to the child labor, and most of the child labor is being done in the second shift. So there was child labor, unfortunately. Yes, in our survey, we have found child labor.
If there is any other question, please raise it now. Otherwise, thank you, Farhad, for your contribution. I see Hassan's also back, but I would like to go to Pradeep and Rafi from Cividep first, and then we can see whether there are any more questions for our colleague Hassan from BLF. Okay. Thanks again, Farhad. Pradeepan, if you'd like to share your screen, you can do so now. And
thank you so much, Virginia. I'll share my screen now. Yeah, I hope everyone is able to see the presentation. So I'm Pradeepan Ravi, and I work at Cividep as the research and advocacy lead. And I've been coordinating Cividep's work in the leather sector since 2016. Today, in my presentation, I'll focus on the social challenges in the Indian leather and footwear sectors, as well as the opportunities we have to address those challenges. I will also be giving some examples from Cividep's work where we try to address particular issues that we identified. So, yeah. Firstly, I would like to give an introduction to Cividep. Cividep is an organization based out of Bangalore in South India, and we've been working on workers' rights and corporate accountability. So much of our work, is focused on export-oriented sectors such as garments, leather, electronics, and plantations. And we conduct research on working conditions. And using the findings as the base, we do advocacy with business and government actors. We also work directly with workers in educating them on their rights and entitlements. And recently, we have also been focusing on business and human rights, mainly around mandatory human rights due diligence framework, trying to build knowledge and awareness around it. So we started working in the leather sector a decade ago in 2013, mainly focusing on the issue of home workers. The leather industry engages home-based workers. And we started, along with our CSO partner called Home Workers Worldwide, we started at a very small way. We operate a workers resource center in a town called Ambur in the state of Tamil Nadu, which is a major leather cluster. And we offer many services to workers, organizing training programs for them, organizing, helping them to access government schemes and social security schemes, etc. Along with that, we also do research and advocacy with brands and government authorities. Our approach has been to engage at multi-stakeholder level, looking at different actors in the supply chain and bringing them all together for dialogue to improve conditions. In this work, we also have had the opportunity to collaborate with a few international brands in mapping their home working supply chains and help them improve the home workers' conditions in their supply chains. So this is a very brief overview of the Indian leather industry, leather and footwear industry. As you know, it's a very important manufacturing activity contributing to the Indian economy. India is the second largest producer and the fourth largest exporter of leather products in the world today. And the states like Tamil Nadu, Uttar Pradesh, and West Bengal occupy top positions in the production and export of leather and leather goods from India. If you look at the export profile, 75% of all leather goods exported from India goes to mainly to 11 countries. USA is at the top of the list, followed by Germany, the United Kingdom, Italy, Spain, France, and the list goes on. If you look at the demography of the workforce, it's the leather industry is a labor-intensive sector. I mean, at each, it is the production is fragmented, and at each stage, it engages a lot of workforce. So overall, around 4 million people are employed in the leather and leather-based industry, either directly or indirectly. And out of that, women occupy like, women's participation is like 30%. Especially in the top tiers, we see a large number of women nowadays, like getting employment. If you look at shoe factories now, more than 80% of workers in the shoe factories, the tier 1 shoe factories, are women. Tanneries also employ a large number of people from socially and economically marginalized sections, like Dalits and minorities. And the workforce is also young, like more than half of them are under the age of 35. Another important feature of the leather sector is that a large number of women home-based workers are engaged in the supply chain, especially through intermediaries. Like factories put out work, outsource certain activities for women home-based workers. So that's another feature of the industry. Yeah. Over these years, we have done many research projects, and we have been able to track certain labor right risks in the industry. So the first and foremost is the issue of low wages. So low wage has been a perennial problem in the leather and leather-based industries. Most of the workers receive wages at the level of minimum wages or below that. The problem with the minimum wage pay scale is that it's far below what we call as, what we have been advocating for as living wages for workers. So in order to workers, for enable them to live a decent life, they should be paid living wages, but the minimum wage rates are far below that. Several times below that. So that's been a problem that we have been tracking. The next to that is the issue of overtime. So production is not the same. In the leather factories, it's not the same throughout the year. The production level varies from time to time, and it is seasonal. So it sees seasonal peaks and troughs. So at times when the production peaks owing to demands from the international market, the workers are forced to do overtime. Sometimes workers also do voluntary overtime because the wages are very low, that in order to make up for a living wage or a wage near to that, workers have to do overtime. So that's been a problem we see in the leather sector. And sometimes workers are also not paid the overtime wages as per the legal requirements. So the Indian law requires overtime wages to be paid at double the normal rates. But I mean, many times we see that it is not the case. Next to that, we also see informality within factories and tanneries. That is like the factories and tanneries engage large number of casual labor, especially during the peak seasons when the production peaks. So without any contract or without any written agreements, workers were just recruited and they were given jobs for a few months, and then they were asked to leave. They are asked to leave. So this kind of informality is there in the industry, and these workers are not entitled to any other benefits other than daily wage. So next to that, we also see informality outside the factory walls in the form of home working. So certain styles of shoes require hand stitching, and this work is also like seasonal. Like these styles of shoes, orders for these come at a particular season. So the factories are forced to outsource these work to home workers through a network of intermediaries. Again, these workers are not coming under any purview of the labor laws. So again, that becomes problematic, and these workers are paid below, many times, I mean, they're paid at piece rate wages, which is below the legal minimum wage for the sector. So we see lack of social security or social safety net for informal workers, be it the casual workers inside the factories or the home workers outside the factories. We also see gender disparity, like within the factories and outside. We see in the tier 1 shoe factories, large number of women workers are employed. But if you look at the who are the supervisors and team leaders, they are male workers. So I mean, we see the power dynamics play out inside the factory walls. So that is problematic. And we also see that the women workers receive very low wages when compared to the male folks, who are, I mean, male workers are in specialized jobs like design or cutting, and are doing sample works. So these workers are paid higher wages than the female workers who are doing other sort of work. We also see lack of transparency in the supply chain. As I mentioned before, the leather work is fragmented, the production is fragmented, and at every stage we see scope for subcontracting, and it is very hard to trace that. The focus of the brands, international brand, is mainly on the tier 1 shoe factories where they have mechanisms to do audits, etc. But underlying that, we have tanneries, we have these home-based workshops, we have a chain of network of intermediaries who put out workers to work to the home-based workers. So all this is like lying hidden in the supply chain. So lack of transparency is a huge issue. And workers also lack freedom of association, especially women workers don't have any access to unions, and the factory managements discourage workers to participate in union activities. Many times punitive actions are taken against them if it comes to their knowledge that workers engage in any sort of collectivization. So that's been problematic. So there's no scope for workers to negotiate for wages or better conditions, like collectively. So that's been problematic, and that has also led to wage stagnation. Apart from that, I mean, at the factory level, we also see the grievance redressal mechanisms are very weak. The statutory committees are there, but it's not effective. The workers say that it's not functioning perfectly, and they don't feel confident enough to go and report grievances in those existing systems. But last but not least, the work at the leather factories and shoe factories and tanneries are replete with risks. I mean, workplace occupational hazards are a reality. Recently, I mean, in the last 10 years, we have also documented that many people have died. I mean, over 20 people have died at the effluent treatment plants because workers were made to, I mean, clean up the effluent tanks without any safety gears. So this has been reported in the media as well. So, and in tanneries as well, the workers are exposed to, at every stage of production, they are exposed to different kinds of chemicals and dust, and they also work in machines at the tanneries and shoe factories. So all these pose risks to the workers, and they are hardly protected. So that way, I think this is also a huge issue in the leather sector. Uh, all these issues have been existing for a long time, but the COVID-19 pandemic has exacerbated the problems further. And during the pandemic induced lockdown, we have found that many workers have lost jobs, and many had to borrow money to even sustain their everyday life. So the question is, like, had they been paid living wages for all these years that they have been working, or if they have had opportunities, no, or coverage under social security or social safety net, I think the effect of the pandemic would have been milder on them. So, I mean, this is how the social condition in the leather and leather product segment looks like. Now I will move to the solutions part. So CVDEP, I mean, right from the beginning, we have understood that the power in the supply chain lies with the buying brands. You know, like because our experience comes from the garment sector also, where we have been working from 2000. So with that idea, I think we have started doing research, and we've been doing advocacy work with several brands internationally, with international partners like Home Workers Worldwide, Clean Clothes Campaign, etc. And in one research that we conducted in 2016, where we mapped the home worker supply chain, and we tried to establish links between the buying brands and to the home workers. I mean, to that report, I mean, some brands responded positively. So one of the brands was Pentland, which was a UK-based brand, and they came to us saying that they want to understand the practice of home working closely, and they proposed that they would like to work with us in mapping, in doing a mapping exercise of their supply chain. So they opened their one of their suppliers supply chain in Ambur, where we are working, and they allowed us to meet with the management, the supplier management, the people at the the production departments, and also the intermediaries who take work from the factories to the home workers. So they introduced us to the agents and also to the home-based workers. So this enabled us to do a thorough supply chain mapping, where we also, where we look very closely at the process, how it happens, how worker is put out to the home-based workers, what are the, who are the players involved, and we also were able to look at the rates, no, like the value at each of the level. So we confirmed the piece rate wages paid to the workers. We were able to confirm the commission amount taken by the agents, and we were able to confirm what was the amount the supplier was paying to the intermediaries and agents. So that way it helped us understand the supply chain better. And next to that, we were also able to do a needs assessment with the home-based workers. So we were able to meet around 200 home-based workers in the suppliers supply chain, and do a basic needs assessment to look at their household level needs as well as community level needs. And based on that, based on these two exercises, we were we submitted a report to the brand with a set of recommendations, and the brand accepted a few of that. So they introduced a progressive home workers policy. Initially, they didn't have any policy of home working for home workers. So they introduced a home workers policy wherein they pronounced that they recognize the contribution of home workers in their supply chain, and they also commit that all the home workers are eligible to entitlements as any factory worker. So based on that, we further had the opportunity to work with the brand to do a time and motion study with the home workers in order to look at arriving at a fair piece rate for the workers. So based on that, the brand revised piece rates to the workers and matched it to the minimum wage rate at the factory level. The next,
yeah. I'm really sorry. We're nearly out of time. Could you wrap up, and then we can see where we can give Hassan a minute to also get to solutions for Bangladesh.
Yeah, definitely. So what I'm coming to say is like the collaborative work is a way to go about, and we were able to see some incremental changes because of that. This piece of work as well as other work we have done in the garment sector with brands. But above all, the incremental changes are not enough. As people are coming out of the pandemic, as they are trying to rebuild their lives, we should move towards the question of living wages. So I think the brands must come towards and commit to paying living wages to the workers. If only, if that is done, I think many of the other problems that the workers face would also be resolved. So next is the question of human rights due diligence. I think Marje will be covering that in detail in our presentation, but that is also an opportunity for brands and other actors in the supply chain to look deeply into the issue of the supply chain workers, like who are invisible in the supply chains, and come up with robust solutions to their problems. With this, I would like to conclude my presentation, and thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you so much, Pradeepan. Hassan, if you're back, can you please also share, without slides, just in a minute, your solutions for Bangladesh? And Pradeepan, in the chat, there's one question. Do you think the trend of informalization is increasing in post-COVID-19 period? If you can answer that question in the chat, we can provide it there, but don't lose time now in this session, because we have a few minutes left for Hassan.
Yes, I am in back, but I have lost the information of chat box. Could you please
if you can just briefly share your last recommendations.
Okay.
We can close it from there. I have them on screen.
You are on my screen.
No, please share them. Just please, you don't need to get your slide. If you can just elaborate on, what your recommendations for government or employers association in Bangladesh, then we can move to Marcia and her last comments on how to address these labor rights risks.
Can you, again, please? I can't hear.
in just 1 minute, what are your recommendations for government and companies
Okay.
to address labor rights risks?
Okay. We have some recommendation from the government. The one is the DIFI, the authority of government for the factory inspection. The factory inspection, this inspection should be increased and more proactive manner to monitor the current employers practice, and also implementation of labor law in all factory level, and identify the illegal contractors, because 60% of the tannery factories are working with the contractors, and we found that a lot of contractors are illegal. So identify the illegal contractors are need from by the government. And implementation of minimum wage as per government declaration is very much absent in this sector. So minimum wage implementation for the government is very much essential to address this issue. And the employers association, some recommendation to formalize this industry, because the absence of appointment letter, workers identity card, employers registration, employee register, all of these are absence of this sector. So employers association can be take the responsibilities to the owners on behalf of the factories to ensure these documents and these facilities, and make these factories formalizations. Though the industry is formal sector, but absence of these facilities are becoming this sector informal sector. And proper protective equipment, equipment facilities need to be provided from the employers to the workers to ensure the safety of the workers. And initiatives need to take from the owners from the perspectives of social responsibilities part.
Thank you, Hassan. There's one question for you in the chat box. If you can answer it in writing. I would like to go to Martje for some closing words on.
Okay, I got the questions.
Can you do them in the chat, Hassan?
Yes.
So
Yes,
give a presentation.
Yes. The increasing of informalization of this sector and workers increased after the pandemic, COVID pandemic increase, and before after the relocation from Hazaribagh to Shabar, also increased the informal workers increased through the subcontractors and temporary workers, and skilled workers are losing after the relocations.
Thank you. Martje, I give the floor to you.
Yes, thank you, Virginia, and also thank you, Pradipan, Hassan, and Farhad for your great presentations. And thank you everyone for joining our session. My name is Martje Theus. I am a researcher at SOMO, and SOMO is the Center for Research on Multinational Corporations. It is a not-for-profit research organization based in the Netherlands, investigating the impacts of corporate activities on people and the environment. Yeah, we have just a few minutes left, so I'm going to try to keep it short. And I will share my screen. One moment. Sorry. Just trying to put it on the slideshow. Okay. Yes, I'm sorry. So we just heard the stories from India, Pakistan, and Bangladesh, and as became clear from these stories, the leather goods supply chain is very complex, with many different production phases that may span different countries, and many different types of production units involved, from big footwear factories to tanneries in different sizes, to informal workshops and home working units. And adding to this complexity is the involvement of agents, middlemen, and buying houses. We also heard from these stories that the workforce in this industry includes vulnerable groups of workers, like migrants, workers with low caste backgrounds, minorities. And often these workers do not have any formal contracts. They work as informal or day laborers, and they lack access to social security and proper wages. And adding to that, access to grievance mechanisms or the ability to join or form unions is very limited. So the speakers before me, they presented many pressing issues in the leather-based garment and footwear sector. And these issues are particularly present in lower tiers of the supply chain, for example, tanneries, or in hidden tiers of the supply chain, for example, in home working units. But also, as my colleague Pradeepan already rightly said, there is a great lack of transparency. It's hugely difficult to link production facilities such as tanneries to the end users, brands and retailers that sell leather goods. But these brands and retailers, they have a responsibility to respect human rights and labor rights throughout their entire supply chain. And as was also already mentioned by Pradeepan, they also often hold a very powerful position in the supply chain, and they influence conditions in the supply chain. So that's why in our Decent Leather program, we are also particularly targeting these international brands and retailers, as we want them to use their powerful position to improve conditions throughout the supply chain. But one obstacle to do so is the lack of transparency, because without knowledge of all the linkages in the supply chains, workers, trade unions, and worker rights organizations, they are empty-handed when they want to knock on the right doors when there are problems. So while in recent years, an increasing number of brands and retailers in the garment industry started publishing supplier lists, it is still a minority that does so. And if we look at subsegments of the leather-based garment and footwear industry, like footwear companies or luxury brands that use a lot of leather, we see that these segments also lag behind in providing this transparency. Furthermore, if companies disclose information about their supply chain, usually it is limited to their first-tier suppliers, the manufacturers of end products, and they do not provide any information about the tiers below that. Governments also fail to provide transparency on trade flows. In some countries, such as India, Brazil, and the US, it is possible to access detailed import and export information, which includes information on shipments with the names of importers and exporters. But in the EU and its member states, they do not provide access to such information. On the contrary, the current EU customs regulations contain clauses that classify this information as confidential. Let me move to my next slide. So moving forward, it is highly important that companies do not only focus their due diligence procedures on their first-tier suppliers. As said, they have a responsibility to respect labor rights and human rights throughout their entire supply chain, and therefore they should also work to identify and address adverse impacts in deeper tiers of their supply chain. And according to the United Nations Guiding Principles on Business and Human Rights and the OECD Guidelines for Multinational Enterprises, it is the severity of the harm that is leading and not the proximity to the harm. Also, the fact that brands and retailers may not have a contractual relationship with facilities deeper in the supply chain does not mean they do not have a responsibility to act. It is also essential that companies assess the impacts of their purchasing practices on their supplier base. Purchasing practices, including pricing practices, should enable all actors along the supply chain to be decent employers and to pay their workers decent wages. Furthermore, workers should get a more prominent role in due diligence procedures. They should be involved in monitoring and improvement efforts. For the last 2 minutes, I will briefly focus on one particular aspect, the aspect of supply chain transparency, as transparency is a key enabler. In the frame of our Decent Letter program, we will publish in the coming weeks a paper on supply chain transparency, where we have assessed the extent of supply chain disclosure of 100 luxury and footwear brands. And we also give detailed recommendations for different actors in terms of improving supply chain disclosure. And I will share with you just briefly some of these recommendations. So first of all, brands and retailers should trace and map all links in the extended supply chain of their of leather-based products, going beyond supplier of end products. And if we talk about the leather-based garment and footwear industry, this extended supply chain includes slaughterhouses and tanneries, suppliers of inputs and materials such as chemicals and raw hides. And also, it is highly important that brands and retailers map subcontracted and home workers that are part of their supply chains. Furthermore, we recommend that brands and retailers engage in a meaningful manner with local and international stakeholders in order to map and understand their supply chains. I think the example that Pradipan of CVDEP shared, where they worked with Pentland, is an example that should be followed by other companies as well. Furthermore, we ask companies to work towards full and advanced.
Unfortunately, we have to end it here.
Yeah. Okay. I stop with full and advanced disclosure of their supply chain, which includes many different data points, including information on the workforce, on the facility, on freedom of association. We will describe all of this in this paper that will be published soon, including also recommendation towards other actors. I'm sorry, there's no time to go through all of that, but thank you very much for your attention.
Martje, I'm really sorry to cut you short here. But good news for the audience, if you keep an eye out on the Together for Decent Leather website on www.togetherfordecentleather.org, you'll soon find all the research that Martje is now elaborating on, including our solutions or our recommendations for advanced supply chain transparency for global apparel companies, their multi-stakeholders initiatives, improvement initiatives, as well as governments who we think should develop and adopt, implement national or international legislation on corporate supply chain disclosure. Herewith, I would like to end the side session. Thank you all for participating. Thank you for our UNDP colleagues for facilitating and hosting us. I wish you all a very good day, and look forward to engaging with you more in the context of Together for Decent Leather or otherwise. I would like to give the floor back to Kessica for some last.
Yes, yeah. Thank you, Virginia. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. And thank you to our speakers and to our moderator again. And that was a very insightful session on the leather-based government supply chain industry. So I'm flashing into you today. We have the remaining interesting side sessions as part of the third UN Forum on Business and Human Rights. Please do attend. Some of the sessions we still have HRDD, Integral to Business and Trade in South Asia, Indigenous Voices on transforming business operations in indigenous territories, and we also have Corporate Capture in South Asia. So do visit our website for the details of this side session. So that's it, everyone, and thank you very much and have a good day. Thank you. Hello? Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?